Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Batra. Well, Prime Minister Modi has inaugurated the headquarters of the International Financial Services Center Authority, the National Stock Exchange, IFSC SGX Connect, and the Indian first bullion exchange, India International Bullion Exchange, today at the Gift City. Now, to understand how Gift City will really open huge opportunity for foreign capital inflow into India, ease of doing business for a whole host of financial institutions from abroad to India, and how will Indian investors really benefit? I'm now joined by a panel of experts: Misha R Sanwal, Portfolio Manager, Millingtonia Capital; Sasha M, Partner, Millingtonia Capital; and equity markets expert Avinnash Gorakshakar joining on the show with me. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking the time out, and welcome to Business Today TV. Now, at the outset, in many ways, today is a historic day in the Indian financial history. Let me start with all of your first thoughts. Avinnash, let me start with you first. Help all our viewers really get a sense of what exactly is Gift City all about. Why is it a huge deal, and what should the people of India know?
Yeah, I think Sakshi, the Gift City Exchange is a very historical moment in our history of our capital markets. First of all, this is an initiative by the Modi government to encourage foreign capital, and it is largely for FIIs and for NRI investors. What the government has tried to do is it has tried to attract funds from FIIs, from NRIs, and to that extent, it has announced some tax benefits so that more and more money comes into the India via these two intermediaries. More importantly, there are many products which are going to be introduced. Direct investment in foreign equities is also going to be possible, and plus there are many derivative products wherein NRIs can take exposure, and obviously the income what they earn here from these derivative products could be completely free of tax. So that again is a kind of a near-term incentive. One important thing which I want to tell you is that the trading time will also be quite long. It will be around 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the second evening session will start from 5 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. So, it's going to be a longer kind of trading period, so that it could help the foreign investors considering the time restrictions which all the countries have. So in that aspect, it would be more complementary for the global investors to actually do the investment activities, trading activities on this exchange, because it encourages a lot of global investors to actually come and participate in their local time, because obviously the trading time is of a longer duration. So in net, it's definitely a good initiative. I think, going forward, this is definitely going to encourage a lot of other FIIs and a lot of NRIs to come and invest in the country via this exchange. That is the Gift City.
Okay, well, thank you for your opening comments, Avinnash. You've given us an entire context of what we can expect, going forward at the Gift City. So, Misha, let me come to you. How excited are you for today, and how do you see the launch of Gift City as a big plus for all the foreign businesses as an opportunity to come and set up in India?
Yeah, thank you, Sakshi, for having us, and good evening, everyone. I think as we just talked about, a second ago here, we are the second fund that's set up in Gift City, and we are largely here because Gift City exists. Our background is investing and working in big funds in the US, working at big firms in the US, and in a lot of ways, what we are trying to do, is only possible because Gift City exists. So, maybe briefly, if I could touch on just sort of the vision here of Gift. And I think, the vision of the Prime Minister here is that Gift City will become the gateway of foreign capital into India. And consistent with that, we are the second public market fund that has been approved and launched out of Gift City.
Okay. Sasha, let me bring you in. Help all our viewers in India understand who will truly benefit from this big launch of Gift City. Just like Misha talked about, it is going to be a gateway that will open up for foreign capital inflow. Help us understand the true beneficiaries and the kind of varied beneficiaries that this will cater to.
Sure. Absolutely. Look, thanks for having us again. I think as the previous panelists have kind of discussed, right, this is just beneficial for the Indian asset management ecosystem as a whole. It's good for investors in India, domestic investors looking to invest abroad, and it's great for international investors, including NRIs, looking to invest in India, right? And I think I would maybe harbor into two specific points that that Gift City especially helps with, right? And the first is just ease of access. right? So investing in India, again, it's been going on for years, but the traditional structures that are much more involved, GIFT City streamlines that, makes it much easier. And I think the second thing that's especially important for domestic investors, but just maybe India's place in the world is just the, essentially liquidity within Indian financial markets. So by making India, increasing the links with the rest of the world, higher liquidity, but is extremely beneficial.
Absolutely. Avinnash, Sasha has just touched upon that magic word liquidity that Indian markets have been celebrating in the last 2 years, barring the last 6 odd months before that during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as we understand, and you also pointed out that the NSE SGX Connect, that's going to be a major point that everybody's got talking about. We're bringing SGX Nifty trading at the GIFT City. So one, help us understand, why are we bringing it to India? What will this do? And is it going to be a rival to SGX Nifty now, the Singaporean Nifty index?
Yeah, I think it will definitely be a rival to the Singapore Nifty. And I think to a lot of extent, Sakshi, the kind of rates which would come on the SGX, especially on the GIFT City, would be more genuine, because typically most of the traders or the investors who actually see these levels realize that, the SGX Nifty does not actually correlate to the Nifty, when the actual trading begins in the domestic markets. So I think to a lot of extent, actual correlation would be more reflective of actual trends. And I think, Indian traders have been largely been operative even on the Singapore Stock Exchange. So a lot of trades would actually shift on the GIFT City. And that would obviously increase the liquidity, it would increase the volumes. And I think to a large extent, as I was mentioning, that, obviously the latest information and the latest trends would get reflected. This is a very valid kind of justification for bringing the SGX Nifty, in the GIFT City. Most importantly, as I understand that, liquidity from the hedge funds, liquidity from the FIs would gather a lot of momentum, obviously over a period of time. Because the diversity of Indian corporates and the kind of earnings growth expectations plus the potential in Indian markets would very well be exploited if you get a lot of liquidity from large fund managers, from the FIs and from the hedge funds. So net, it's a good positive development, and I think it's just the beginning. We could see a lot of improvement as we go forward.
Sure. So help me clarify one more point. So who can invest in SGX Nifty futures, and how different will it be from the Nifty futures that traders and investors invest in?
See, I think what I understand is that Indian residents are not going to get any taxation benefits. Largely, it's going to be the FIs, it's going to be the hedge funds, and it is going to be the NRIs. NRIs are going to be given a kind of option to invest in derivative products, which could include even Nifty futures. And whatever income they earn from these Nifty futures or basically derivative products, that is going to be completely tax-free. So, that is the bigger incentive given by the government for, trading on the GIFT City exchange. The Indian traders, unfortunately, may not be given that kind of liberty, and they might not be able to take the benefit of this exchange, at least for the time being. Hopefully, as we go forward, even the domestic investors could get a chance to trade on this exchange. So as of now, the GIFT City is largely beneficial for the NRIs and for the global funds which are going to trade on this exchange. And actually, it won't be different from the domestic Nifty futures. Basically, obviously, since the exchange starts a little bit early, obviously the trading price and the volumes and the trends would be more visible. And as you know, obviously, as the market actually starts officially in India from 9:15. Those futures would obviously get reflected, typically when actual trading begins on the official exchanges like the BSE or the NSE. So I think it's not going to be different, but it would give a little bit of a lead time for investors or traders to actually place their orders on the GIFT City exchange, and then obviously, use those trends effectively to, strike profitable trades. So that is how it will work.
Understood that. So, Misha, let me bring you in. You have been to India before, and why GIFT City? First, help us understand that. What really encourages you to set up your financial business in the GIFT City?
Yeah, I know. I think it's a very relevant question, and 2 years ago, our answer would have been very different.
Yeah.
So typically, funds such as us would have set up in Mauritius or some other jurisdiction like that, like Singapore. That's sort of where most funds
Sure.
today operate out of, and it is almost the sort of the prevailing practice is to set up in one of those jurisdictions. And what GiftCity does is it gives us two things. One is it gives us the ability to be on the ground full time in India. And that is very important because then we can be closer to the companies and management teams that we're investing in. So it gives us that benefit. And then secondly, it allows us to benefit from a streamlined regulatory process and a tax structure that is comparable or better than any other jurisdiction. And that is very powerful because in some ways, what is happening is we are recreating the best of Mauritius or Cayman inside India. So you can now combine the benefit of being in India, physically in India, and benefit from close access to companies and management teams and conferences, et cetera. And at the same time, get all the benefits that you get from an international jurisdiction. And that has other ramifications as well, which we can touch on later.
Right. So what kind of tax benefits and, other ease of doing business measures are you going to be exploring in the GiftCity? Could you also expound upon that?
Yeah, I think the way to think about that is what Mauritius and Cayman give is simplicity of taxation. For example, international arbitration rules, a law of settling disputes. All of that has been adopted in GiftCity. So, for example, the Singapore arbitration, it's a very big deal. It's streamlined tax process, again, a very big deal. And so things like that, I think, are very important because it sort of allows the best of both worlds. And I think in concept, the idea here is that why should the ecosystem to invest in India sit outside India? It should sit inside India. Absolutely. And that is really sort of the idea of GIFT.
Makes a lot of sense. So, Sasha, help us understand why are investors, especially the foreign investors, really liking GiftCity right here? What opportunities does GiftCity really open for people like you, funds like you?
Great. Look, international investors are always concerned about unpredictable regulation in emerging markets. And it's very important that GiftCity has the backing of the government all the way up to the prime minister, right? And along with this, GiftCity obviously has tax efficiencies. It's adopted Singapore arbitration, again, very, very helpful. And it offers world-class service providers, right? So all of this is very, very reassuring for investors.
Absolutely. You touched upon a very important point that has been a big concern for all the foreign businesses who've come here, who wanted to set up here, wanted to expand themselves, because one, of tax certainty that was missing for them, and two was the business confidence that was at a low point. But slowly and gradually things have improved. Do you think that GiftCity will be able to take that one notch up?
Look, I think that's certainly the intention, right? If you, I think even beyond GiftCity, right? I think the country, is moving in that direction, right? I think, especially given the last couple of years, right? I think there's clearly, an imperative being felt, from the very highest levels of government to boost FDI in the country, right? So, again, it's slow and steady steps. We might be taking a step back, right? But then we'll take 2 steps forward, right? I think GiftCity is going, just the promise of GiftCity, certainly will go a long way towards that. We haven't touched on the regulator as well, right? So just to give you a historical context here, right? GiftCity, largely the concept of GiftCity started in 2015, and a lot of the recent momentum really took off in 2020 after the government appointed a single window regulator, the IFSC, right? So something that I think is very clear to us in the 6-7 months that we have been working at GiftCity, right, is that this is a very collaborative kind of ecosystem, right? The changes are taking place, right? We're moving in the right direction, but more importantly, the regulator is seeking input from the industry, right? So that's, so all of those things are things in the right direction.
Okay, understood that. Avinash, since you were talking about it right in the beginning of your answers, you talked about how the NSE IFSCA has already begun operations, giving Indians exposure to international stocks, the big tech companies, the Nasdaq, the Amazon, the Facebook of the world, those kind of stocks, the Nasdaq listed stocks especially. There's also this new bullion exchange that Prime Minister has launched today. How are you looking at these new offerings for the Indian investors who've so far not had this opportunity before? What opportunities does it open for Indian investors, especially?
I think longer term, I think this is definitely a good initiative because it gives a good opportunity, for Indian investors to actually get liquidity, for assets like gold and typically an opportunity to invest in, global companies. So I think it's definitely a good opportunity. I think many HNIs, family offices, and even individual small investors prefer to invest, in global companies directly, and this is definitely a very good entry point. As far as the bullion exchange is concerned, I think that will give a better kind of pricing, to the to this asset class, and obviously that would also provide a good liquidity route, because typically, in India there's a lot of gold, but unfortunately, very few actually come on the recognized stock exchanges to sell it. So I think that is going to be a good opportunity for India, where there's an ample amount of gold supply, and that would obviously improve the pricing and the liquidity for investors.
Right. Sasha, what will be your focus at the Gift City? What will you really seek to achieve? What are you setting out for yourself as a fund?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, so this is a long-term endeavor for us, like Misha mentioned as well. We both chosen to come back to India. This is a long-term bet for us. We see the promise in the Indian markets, right? And again, this is a public markets focused fund, right? And we and we have a pretty expansive mandate.
Okay. Misha, any clients that you are targeting right here, the companies that you've been working on very, very closely, could you share some of those thoughts as well with us?
Yeah, so we can't mention specific names, but I think broadly what we could say is that two things. One, I think the companies are just as excited when we tell them that we're set up in Gift City because it's new for them. They also tell us we're among the first few that have been set up there, which is correct. I do think that'll change over time. I think there's a lot more funds that will probably set up over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And that as that ecosystem builds, I would expect, and you can already see it with the nameplates that are on the doors in Gift City. Law firms are moving in, accounting firms are moving in, a whole set of other service providers are moving in. So that ecosystem will continue to build. I think for the companies in India, a lot of them have aspirations to operate and play not just on the Indian stage, but on the global stage. And to do that, if they have aspirations for sort of being dominant world companies, not just dominant Indian companies, I do think there's an appreciation for that from their side on what U.S. investors can bring in terms of not just capital, but also how to let them benefit from the investor experience of having invested in a lot of different markets. So we hear that from some of our companies as well, and it's really interesting. I think this whole India has a great, very robust economy. We're clearly benefiting from some of the issues taking place. The supply chains are shifting to India now from some of our large neighbors. But I think the next big thing is sort of made in India for the world, which is Indian companies aspiring, as I said, for the global stage. And I think that's where investors such as ourselves that have sat on boards and invested in companies globally can be very helpful to some of these companies.
Right. So Sasha, like how Misha pointed out, it's not just about capital, but, capital is something that we have been very, very concerned about, especially when we look at the last 6 months, especially, and Avinnash would agree with that. And I'll take Avinnash's comment also on this. In the last 6 months of 2022 calendar year, we've actually seen foreign capital outflow from India to the tune of 2 lakh crore rupees, 2.5 lakh crore rupees. It is huge. Of course, the month of July has seen some beginning of this change. Will Gift City add on to that? What are you listening around you? And from those who are big investors, are they willing to put in more money in India? And will Gift City also change that for us?
Yeah, look, I think two things to that, right? First of all, there's the concept of, what is the longer term trend in terms of FDIs, right? I think that is very clear. If you look at this, not on a 3, 6, 9 month horizon, you look at this, on a 5, 10 year horizon, it's very clear that that's up and to the right. Right. So I don't think that's a question in terms of, is that going to change? right? As we look around the world, there are very few large economies, right, that have as attractive fundamentals, whether it's demographics, whether it's the economy, right, or just the opportunity in terms of the companies to invest in, right, whether in the private or public markets. So, hey, that's not a problem. Investors we talk to, there's a very high degree of interest in India. In fact, we would probably argue that a lot of the institutions we talk to are underinvested in India relative to a lot of the other countries in Asia, right? Be it China or something else. And in terms of what's going on for the last 6-7 months, there's a lot of geopolitical risk going on. There's obviously, a lot of central bank kind of movements as well, right? The market will always have those short-term kind of dislocations. It's not surprising that we've seen, essentially pull out from India in the last 6 to 7 months. It's expected, right? Just given the magnitude of what's going on internationally. But the trend I think that goes along with that, that's certainly supported the markets a lot, is the fact that even though while you've seen this pullback in foreign investors, the domestic investors, in particular the retail investors, but also to a certain extent the Indian institutional investors, right, have held firm, right? So that's that goes along, I think, to speak to the maturity of the markets as well as the depth of the markets.
Okay, taken that point for sure. Avinnash, would you like to add to that?
I think clearly, the longer term trend, Sakshi, is going to be positive. In fact, hopefully, I think over the next, say, 3 to 6 months, the trend would definitely change for the better. And I think, looking at the kind of growth India has been recording compared to US or even compared to the Asian countries, I think we are definitely well positioned. And wherever the growth happens, I think FI flows would continue to, come. So I think it's a matter of time before we could see the revival in FI flows. In fact, the last few weeks have been very positive. And I'm quite hopeful that, possibly, if not immediately, but at least the third or fourth quarter of FY23, you could see these flows, turning stronger again. So I think this is a long-term game. And I think short-term volatility will be there in the market. So I think that is nothing to be worried about. FIs cannot ignore India. That's the bottom line.
Okay, FIs cannot ignore India. That's the bottom line. But last comments and closing comments from all three of you. Do you believe that India's GIFT City could actually emerge as the new financial hub of the world over the course of time, looking at the way all three of you and the other marquee investors that we've been speaking to are really positive on the India story in the long term? Starting with you, Misha.
Sure. Look, I think you need a couple of things. You need one, interest in investing in the country, as we just talked about. That clearly seems to be the case. The sort of the digital story in India, which we didn't touch on, is very strong. And, we saw China go through that 10, 15 years ago. It's now India's turn. And, that is the premise of what we're investing behind. Finally, for something like GIFT City to be successful, you need three things. Okay. You need alignment of purpose between the regulator, the government, and the industry. And that, I think, is happening at GIFT. So, we should then debate how successful GIFT is going to be. I think that it's going to be successful should not be a question if you have those three things.
Okay, Sasha?
Look, I think along those lines, right, I think all the elements are in place for GIFT City to be extremely successful, right? And the alignment of purpose that Misha spoke about, look, that's certainly, we've been on the ground now for 7 months, right? And, every time we visit, every time we're there, right, it's very palpable the change that's taking place. And so, so we're on the right path, right? There's a long journey to walk, but it's but GIFT City, the country is making a lot of progress.
Okay, understood that. Avinash, closing comments on what is your outlook on the potential growth that GIFT City can really offer?
Yeah, I think over the next, say, 5 to 10 years, what developments and what growth we have seen on the NSE, I think the same growth or even stronger growth could emerge over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. And as our esteemed guest mentioned, that the regulator and the government is going to support this initiative. So that is a very big positive development. And with that, I think the success of this GIFT City exchange is definitely assured. It's only a matter of time before we see volumes pick up.
Okay, understood that. Well, thank you so much, panelists, for being with us on this discussion. It's been an absolute insightful conversation that I'm sure all the viewers have been excited to hear about. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to all of you.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share, and subscribe.